Hey there, welcome to CNT Collectibles. I am C. Hope you're doing well. All right, release day is upon us. Topps Series 1 2022. One of the happiest days of the year, of course. And so it's always a little bit difficult to say, who am I going to set aside into a binder, top loader, or who's just going to go into a box that hopefully I can just pull out later because they've done well. So what I like to do is just go through some of the rookies and identify a few targets. Maybe I want to get something fun from them or whatever down the road. And I thought I'd share with you today. A lot of people have put this stuff out. Here's my take. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but here it is anyways. This is just my homework. I already had it done, so might as well throw it in video form. So let's get started here. So what I'm looking for primarily when I get the checklist, I'll download them. I'll go through all the rookies, and anybody that's 25 or older, I'm kind of putting them aside. And then I start to go through pitchers, and I'll start to, if they don't have fair value, so I'll go with the scouting values. If they don't have future values of 50, 60, or 70 or something like that, I'll put them aside as well. They could work out, but for now, they're going to have to prove it, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them. And so what I'm looking for are hitters that their hit tool leans towards hitting the ball, and pitchers whose pitching tool leans towards power. And so if you can get those two things, then I'm interested. And so I've culled this down to a few names, and we'll see what we see on this one. And so we'll start it off with, and this is not in any particular order for the most part, but and mostly because the checklist here is kind of a dumpster fire. But there's one player that might be interesting. Actually, I've got two interesting names for you at the end here. So Brandon Marshall started off with age 24. All right, this is going to be his age 24 season here. So he's got time to put up some decent numbers here. He's a future value of 60. So when you have these scouting grades, it's on a 20-80 scale. 50 is your average player, and then it goes up 60, 70, 80. Each of those is one standard deviation. Why doesn't it go to 90 or 100? Once you get 3 standard deviations, or 80 away from 50, you basically you've encompassed all potential outcomes. You're talking about a player that's going to be in the top 5 scouts project, and so it's rare to get that. Only one player has. We might see him today, but if you're sitting in that 70 grade area, then you're probably a top 10, 15 player projected wise, maybe 20. When you get to 50, then you're kind of the average player. So I want something above average. Now, Juan Soto was a 50 grade player coming up, and he started hitting and hasn't looked back. So it's not a perfect system or anything like that. But we have to start somewhere, otherwise we're looking at 100 guys, and I've already talked too much here. So he has a future value of 60. A lot of that comes from speed. So this is not a player I'm terribly interested in. If you play really, really good defense, you're not terribly hobby relevant. I want to see those 60 grades in the hit tool, which he doesn't have a ton of. Now, what he does have an 80 grade is his flow. That is amazing stuff right there. And if they can take advantage of that in the card, then yes, I will absolutely go out of my way to get that. But for now, 2021 smaller sample size, roughly a half season or just under 260 plate appearances. Kind of what he did throughout the minors, hit about 250. BABIP fueled, it was very high. So he's when you have a 60 speed, you're going to be able to find ways to get on base. So it's a little bit of an empty average. No power to speak of here. He struck out a ton in the minors, and again, has never really exhibited power. So something's got to change with his game. This is going to be a defense-first guy, and typically in the hobby, those aren't the most interesting. So Jarren Duran will have entering his age 25 season. Future value of 50, so average player, but he's in a big market, and so you have to pay a little bit more attention because the Red Sox fans might go nuts for him a little bit. So another speed guy with a below-average hit tool for the most part. Now, something happened last year. In 2021, he had 112 plate appearances in the majors with a 215 average. So nothing really to speak of there. But what got interesting is in the minors, he showed a pretty decent hit tool. He walked 10% of the time, struck out 20% of the time. Is what you're looking for sustainable, good player over time here. But in the AAA season before he came up, I mean, here was a guy that was hitting 40% of his balls in the air, 20% of those were leaving the park, and he had like 16 home runs in half a season. So it's like, well, is he a 30 home run guy or is he a 5 home run guy with speed? So we don't know. He changed something last year, and until he proves it's sustainable, then it's worth watching. But keep him on his radar. So which guy are we getting here? The guy that absolutely tore it up in the first half of AAA last year before coming up, or are we getting the guy who for the previous 5 years didn't hit for a lot of power. So I'm intrigued, but he's going to have to show that power again this year. Otherwise, again, not terribly hobby relevant, but something happened there, so it's worth checking on. Josiah Gray came over from the Dodgers and got a few starts with Washington, and they were decent starts. So age 24, some of them weren't that decent. He's a future value of 55, so just above average. Command guy, and you can see this in the minors. He had lowish walk rates here, so he would strike out 12 per 9 and walk just over one batter per 9. And so he maintained the double-digit strikeout rate all through his minor league baseball career. So people are pretty excited about this. If you're not walking a ton and you're striking out double digits, that's a big deal right there. So in the majors, he was sub 10 in strikeouts, and he started walking guys about 4.2 every 9. So it didn't quite go. Yeah, I think he came up and had a couple of good starts, but then things kind of fell off the rails. And so if you're not going to have these huge fastballs or anything like that, you need to really exhibit some control. So let's see if he can get back to those minor league numbers. If he's walking a player or two per game and striking out 10 plus, then we've got something there. So he needs to fix this and get back to what he's doing in the minors. So in the majors. In the minors, he was a 2.5 ERA guy with a 3.5 xFIP. In the majors, 5.5 ERA with a 5 xFIP. So he outperformed his peripherals just a little bit, but it was still not good. And so again, with pitchers, I'm usually not doing much in the first place. And with Josiah Gray, until we see that walk rate drop and that strikeout rate get back up to where it was in the minors, probably not a player I'm super interested in. Kyle Muller, another guy that can throw the ball hard. He'll be entering his 24th season. He had a couple good starts last year, and I think he kept getting sent back and forth. I remember having to shuffle him in and out of my fantasy lineup. So scouting grades, he's a future value of 45, so below average for the most part, but he's got a 70 grade fastball. It's tough to teach how to throw harder. You can teach command. Tough to show how to teach harder. So I'll take that over a guy with 70 or 80 command and a 35 fastball, I think, for upside at least. So he's got the fastball slider combo. He's got to learn how to rein it in just a little bit. Striking out 9 per game, walking nearly 5 per game. So get that under control. Now Atlanta has a history of working with pitchers and making them successful. So we'll see what happens on that one. 4.17 ERA with a 4.88 xFIP, which is consistent to minor league baseball. So the guy really, he's got that $1 million arm. Let's see if he can rein it in a little bit. But these are impressive raw grades, and if the Braves can harness the command just a bit, we've got something there. But as far as going all out of my way for something like that for a player like Kyle Muller, probably not doing it. Again, pitcher and a wild pitcher, that not super interested at this point. I may be wrong, but for now, not doing too much. And the good thing is his prices will probably be pretty low, so it might be cheap speculation, but not a player I'm terribly interested in speculating. Luis Gil. All right. Yankee prospect, so you might have to pay more than you'd like to if you want something special from him. So age 23, he'll turn 24 during the season here, so that age 23 and a half, that's what that means. 45 future value, 70 fastball, 60 slider, and 40 command. So another guy kind of in that Muller mode where it's like you've got the arm from Hades. You're not able to control it for the most part. So striking out almost 12 per 9, but walking almost 6 per 9. You're not going to last too far into games, doing something like that. 3 ERA. So on the surface, people will be like, oh my gosh, this looks really good. But 4.85 xFIP. So he's getting very fortunate. And again, another player until he can harness this and show some command, not terribly interested in now. And also add in the Yankee premium. So Yankee fans, if they're going nuts for him, I'm just going to get out of the way and let them have it. So all right, getting into some hitters here. Matt Vierling, age 25, future value of 45. In 2021, he had 77 plate appearances, so small sample size, 324 average. So on the surface, we've got a guy here that can hit. 420 BABIP, expect a regression there. So in the minors, he was a 1020 walk strikeout guy. So decent plate approach there. So he can hit. That BABIP might be a little too much there. That's a tough number to sustain for the most part. And he doesn't have a ton of power. So again, another player I'm not going to pay a lot of attention to for card purposes. So he can hit the ball, but it's not leaving the park, and it's BABIP fueled, and in the hobby, those guys don't really command a lot of attention here. Reed Detmers, age 22 and a half. He'll turn 23 some point during the season here. 50 future value with a 70 curve and a 60 command. So here's a guy that has to get a little bit crafty to get those strikeouts. He does a decent job with that. 5 games in the majors, struck out 8 per 9, walked nearly 5 per 9. So that 60 command isn't really playing a part yet. 68 left on base percentage. So he's getting a little bit lucky with fewer players than average being stranded on base here. So, I think unlucky. Yeah, if his 90 left on base, really good skill set, getting lucky. 68, 70%. Other direction there, I always get confused. I know what I'm talking about. I just get confused when when I don't write this stuff down with a 7.5 ERA. But he outpitched that just a bit on the xFIP, and that's where the unfortunateness, whatever, of the left on base percentage kind of comes in play on the xFIP. So in major leagues, he went from AA up to the majors in 2021. So it's tough to really get a gauge, going up that level. He has adjustments to make. They have enough time to make those adjustments. And so with the command, I would expect that to get a little bit better. But without the fastball, without the huge strikeout rates, then in the majors, then it doesn't get too exciting. But if you look at his minor league numbers here, so in AA, he's striking out 16 per 9. That's an insane amount, and he was walking 3 per 9, and so that's a 35% K to walk rate, K minus base on balls, which is elite. We did a video on that a couple weeks ago. You get around 20 or above, you're doing really well. 30 above is insane stuff, and so this is why he made these jumps, striking out 12 in AAA, walking 1. So there's where that command comes in with a 31% K minus base on balls. So he's shown he hasn't had enough games in the majors for the most part. Very, very young. This is a player that I might do a little bit extra with here. So if he can get back to something close to this, then we're talking about something. And what is he on the Angels? Rendon back, Trout back. You have maybe they make a decent signing here. You've got some players that could do something. Ohtani. If he's part of that, maybe he gets a little bit of interest. And so I'm really intrigued by these numbers. I think maybe there's something there. Not enough sample size to say everything is falling off. So let's see what he can do next year. I'll have a little bit closer eye on him than some others. Tony Santillan, age 25, 40 grade future prospect. So not the greatest here, but I want to show you in the season they can change some things, and we'll see if that is sustainable. 2021 minor league baseball, 12 strikeouts per 9. That's not bad. 4 walks. That's not the greatest. 90% left on base. That's where you're getting lucky. 90% of the people that reach base stay there. The league average is around 80. There's some skills that you can have to keep guys there, but usually it doesn't vary by much more than a few percent or so. Kind of fortunate in the minors. So he was dominant in the minors. You can do it, but when you get to the majors and do the same thing, that's a little bit fortunate. 2.13 ERA, pitching at a 3.5 xFIP level. So getting, again, here's where it gets fortunate. I'd look at the year and say, hey, awesome. I'll look at that and say, you're getting fortunate by stranding so many players. A couple more of those guys score, get down to 80% left on base. Then you see this thing rise closer to that expected fielding independent pitching. 23.7 strikeout tape. So good numbers here. So strikeouts minus base on ball percent. 23, again, above 20 is a pretty good number here. In the majors, striking out 11 per 9, walking 4.5 roughly per 9. Again, that left on base is leading to a lower ERA than what he was pitching to, with an 18% strikeout to base on ball. So if he can get that number down just a little bit, you're talking about a serviceable major league pitcher. Serviceable major league pitchers don't command a ton of attention or dollars, and so he could be a productive guy. This may be for fantasy baseball. Here's maybe a sleeper guy that could be a couple guys off the bench or keep him ready for the waiver wire or something like that. But I think for card purposes, probably not anything to go too nuts about. All right, Vidal Brujan. This was one of the big prospects for the Rays until some other guy came along. I forget his name. So, but this was kind of their big guy. Really, he had a monster season. It was an insane season. MVP level season in the minors. Hasn't really been able to replicate that, and I think people might be reaching in this set. There's only a guy or two that's worth really going for, and they may be reaching to go for some players like Vidal Brujan. And here's why maybe you don't want to. Age 24, so that's a decent number to come up at. You'd really love to see that age 22 or something, but age 24 is better than most of the guys on this list here. He's got a 60 future value, so that looks intriguing enough. It's like here's an above average player, 70 speed, 65 hit. These are really, really good numbers, but there's no power to speak of for the most part. So, very good plate presence in the minors. He struck out, or he walked 10%, a little over 10% of the time, while striking out 15% of the time. That's a great plate presence there. But he's got with a 260 average, it's kind of an empty average for the most part. So not a lot of power. He's got a high BABIP, but he's got he's got a lot of speed. So he can have that higher based on batting average and balls in play. He can beat a lot of stuff out here, and you just need to do that a few times to raise the average here. But a sub 800 OPS, so on base plus slugging. So In 2018, he had a 190 WRC plus, which is 130 is elite, 190 is Juan Soto for the most part. Hasn't really replicated that since. So when you have a player with a lot of speed and you're just getting a lot of singles and doubles and not putting the ball out of the park, again the hobby value on that is not generally very high. And so if I get something from Vidal, great, I'll set it aside, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it. Aaron Ashby starts to get interesting here. So age 24. 50 future value. So you look at this and it's like, okay, average level pitcher. There's something under the hood here that leads me to believe there's a little bit more to it. And so he's got a 60 grade fastball, slider, and changeup. And in 2021, 4 major league starts. He went 2-1, whatever, 4.5 ERA, pitched at a 3 xFIP level, getting very unlucky in the left on base department, and he was giving up some homers. And I think that's something he can correct. But over the minors and into the majors, I mean, he's been able to maintain that 20% or above strikeout to base on ball ratio, which is what you're looking for in those upper end of pitchers. And so he started to drop his walks, all right, as he progressed more, which is unusual. And typically when you adjust to higher levels, you're walking more guys. As he progressed higher through levels and into the majors, he started walking fewer players. And that double digit K rate is something that you should take notice of. And again, letting up a few home runs here. We know what Milwaukee's done with their pitchers. For some reason, they come up and they're awesome. There's something in the water, and we know it's Miller Lite in the water in Milwaukee. So all these guys are really drunk, and so they pitch really, really well. So Aaron Ashby, just on speculation purposes, because he's got that decent level of control, and he's got some nice pitches and some nice off-speed pitches, double-digit strikeouts, lowering that walk rate. And I think for pitchers in this one, if I'm going to do something with a pitcher, it's probably going to be this guy right here. So Aaron Ashby, nephew of Andy or Alan Ashby, one of the Ashbys. He's a nephew, so he had good upbringing there. So we'll finish it up with the guy that I'm not too familiar with here. So we'll just look under the hood and see what we see here. Wander Franco or something like that. I don't get it. Age 21. Scouting grade 80, no one's ever gotten that before. The 2080 system's been around for just a few decades, but no one has gotten an 80. And here's your first one, the most perfectest prospect ever. Walks 10% of the time, strikes out 10% of the time. This is a amazing level plate presence. 150 WRC bat in the minors, which again, 130 is elite, 150 is you're beyond all-star. I mean, you're talking MVP conversation here. 127 weighted runs created in majors, so an elite level bat up in just his first half season of the majors. Again, age 21 with that perfect great. Now, power hasn't developed yet. He's never shown it. And he hasn't really developed it. And so I think if you really want this, he's going to come out with a ton of hype. This is probably not a player you chase as soon as it comes out. Maybe you never get another chance, if he comes out and hits the ground running. But because he doesn't have the power, this is Juan Soto type stuff right here. Okay. It's difficult to say. It sounds weird to say, here's your next Juan Soto 3 years after the first Juan Soto, but with his plate presence, with the weight and hitting the ground running, this is generational type stuff here. It's amazing. And Major League Baseball really wants to screw with these guys and not get the season going for some ungodly reason. End rant. But the power isn't there. If he can't put up, 25, 30 home runs to go with, 330 average and that crazy hit tool, what do you think happens to his card values? Basically, if he's Juan Soto, we know what happens with his card values. The front runs are going to be crazy high, but when you get to the more limited stuff, they could be comparable. But when you get, if you're doing, the 330 and you're hitting 10 home runs a year, you're Tim Anderson. And what do those cards look like? So it's younger. It's a really interesting Hall of Fame track. So I'm not saying Tim Anderson prices or anything like that, but do you think people are going to pay Juan Soto prices for someone with Tim Anderson level production? So whatever I get from Wando will go into a top later and a place of honor in my collection. As far as going out of the way, right off the bat, we'll see what the prices are doing. I'm guessing not. They might go ripping. And if people start to sour on the lack of power, if it doesn't start to develop this year, and again, he's never really shown it, maybe those cards start to come off a bit, or if it slumps, and that's when I'll pounce. I'm actually absolutely go out of my way to get some of his stuff here. Probably not right off the bat. And again, gotta be cognizant of that power thing. If you're a guy that's hitting a ton without the power, again, just hobby wise, it doesn't quite work out. So all right, those are my targets. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Happy hunting, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.